I mean, I have a great deal of talent, but I've known other talented people. I mentioned a few people who have disappointed me recently. One is a fellow who left the arts totally, and if you had gone back 30 years ago when we were both in our 20s, it would have been difficult to predict which one, he or I, would have become a great artist, and which one would leave the arts, because he has a handful of great poems, but he left the arts. In another case, I know a fellow who's could be a great poet and is close to it, but he's religious and he became a preacher. And another example, I know a fellow who had a lot of talent, and he recently, wrote a book, and I read it, and it was his worst work, and I told him so, and I haven't heard from him for months since. Uh, there's another person that I was recently trying to tutor because she wanted help, and I offered help, and she has personal problems of her own, and she probably isn't going to ever become what she could be in that particular art form. And it's frustrating dealing with these people, because you I look at it as, if I waste my life and waste my talent, I'm not just wasting my life and my talent. Because the tendrils of the things that I write, this is the thing about great art, is that it is that communication across time and space. If I want to know what, for example, I'm going to do a 5-play sequence on Jason and the Argonauts. I can read the Argonautica by Apollonius Rhodus, who wrote that epic poem. Um, but I can know a little bit about what people then thought of this, that, or the other thing, and that's interesting. And you know, you are just not your own experiences. You're a culmination of the things that came before, whether it's the scientific stuff of the physics of an expanding universe, assuming that's correct, whether it's how human beings differentiated, or how we got opposable thumbs and how that affected the development of our brains, how language came about with a change in the way our larynxes are versus, say, chimps. Chimps, even if chimps had the brains to make language, to understand language, they couldn't speak it out loud. They might be able to write it, but they couldn't speak it because they don't have a larynx like we do. All of these things have gone into making you and I who we are. But there is, I mean, I've argued for a lot of people. Alex Sherrimet, for example, doesn't believe in free will. I'm a big believer in free will, because there is no way, like I said, that fellow who 30 years ago you couldn't tell which of us would have become a great writer. The reason that I'm a great writer and he doesn't is because we made choices. I took my future, my then future, and I said, no one is going to outwork me, even if I'm working at assorted jobs, shit jobs I've had. I take a certain pride in that, and and I took the cosmos, my, if you want to call it destiny, although I don't believe in destiny since I believe in free will, but I took charge of my own future, and I willed it. And it's not like that woman who's putting the post-its all across her board to write a shitty novel. It's knowing what can be done, what you can do, and then doing it. And most people can't do that because a part of them don't want to do that. And again, it's what it is.
And so why did you? So you're saying a lot of it's talent. You do have talent, but the other part of it, and something you keep on saying in the memoirs, that you studied great writing, and you tried to figure out why it is great. How can I reproduce this moment of greatness? How can I do this? And so you're saying that you part of it is choice. You chose. There is a alternate dimension out there of Dan Schneider who never chose to do any of this stuff. Went down whatever road it was. Didn't write very much anything. So a lot of it was choice. But it also does seem like you are the anomaly, because I do think there are a lot of artists who also choose that, but also their output is not very. It might be good, but it's very slim.
Well, I think if you look at True Life, and again, that's only maybe a small slice of what I actually went through. Um, I have a tendency that if you try to crush me, I'm like a piece of coal. You're going to make a diamond, and I resist being controlled by other people. Or I mean, obviously there are things I could tell you about, people who threatened me physically, when I was a kid, or uh, sometimes when I've written certain things, I've had people threaten to sue me about this, that, or the other thing. But it's like, whatever, I've had terrible jobs and terrible bosses and whatnot, and you just have to keep going because in 50 years and 100 years, when both you and I are long dead, no one's going to give a fuck. All that's going to be
Yeah.
there is the work. And I've said this before. When you think of Walt Whitman or you think of William Shakespeare, you're not thinking about the guy who lived 400 plus years ago. You're thinking about Shakespeare, the works. The artist becomes the works. Yes, biography then just becomes minutia. You know, uh, if you're reading a great poem about a girl I fucked in 1993 or whatnot, the poem matters. What happened to the girl and me is just trivia.
Right. But that's also I think that's a rare perspective because most people when they're writing the stuff that what I'm trying to say is you seem to lack some of the inhibitions that would keep a lot of people from doing this, and that seems
And
also to be
I chose that
that
because
yeah
my natural state is I would not engage. For example, and in a sense, it's a good thing creatively. Because let's say if I had written in 1988, I was contracted by this company called the Edward Mellon Press. Right now, they do a lot of scholarly stuff. They're still around. They wanted me to write a poem on King Arthur, and I wrote the poem. And it was the best thing I wrote at the time, and it's still a good, solid poem. But it's nothing compared to my later work. I don't. It's somewhere in my. I have a couple of safes where I have my old manuscripts. It's somewhere there. I haven't seen it in years, but imagine if that book had been published. The press wanted me to then they became a partial subsidy press, and I decided not to do that because I had subsidy published an earlier shittier poem uh, in my in the mid '80s. But I said no, I'm not going to do that. But imagine if they had published it and it had gotten out to great acclaim, and so I would have had this mediocre poem out there, and people would be raving about it. Well, this is why you need to have good criticism. How many artists that have some talent do something, make a mediocre film or whatnot, and get praised to heaven, and then they get a 4 picture deal to make blockbusters. There's a guy, David Gordon Green is a good example. His first 3 or 4 films were small independent films of quality. Then he started doing I think he did Halloween, the remake. So he made all this money doing crap. What incentive does he have to go back? What incentive did someone like George Lucas have to make quality films? And he could have been a great filmmaker if you see something like THX 1138, his first film that he made. But he made all this Star Wars crap. And now he's worth $10 billion or whatever the fuck he's for putting out garbage and promoting Joseph Campbell bullshit to the world. So in a sense, creatively and for society in the long run, it might be a good thing that my stuff didn't get out when I was 25 or 30 and I was not a great writer or just becoming a great writer, because I don't think I would have gotten lazy, but it would have been more likely than me being lazy. Now I can go till I drop dead, and I can use the screwings over that I and my wife Jessica have gotten as fuel. But so you have to look at it from that perspective.